We have too many high-sounding words and too few actions that correspond to them. Abigail Adams. Well, hey there, welcome to the Retirement Answer Man Show. My name is Roger Whitney. I am your host, and this show is dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement, but have the confidence, because you've done the work, to lean in and rock retirement. Love this quote from Abigail Adams, and it's basically about closing the knowing versus doing gap, which is the ultimate game in a lot of retirement planning, any kind of planning, actually. The reason I bring this up is I got an email from a listener recently that was talking about how difficult it has been to, quote unquote, keep up with the endless stream of information on retirement planning, podcasts, blogs, YouTube videos, books. This endless stream of information and a lot of wisdom in a lot of these vehicles, these articles and so forth. A lot of wisdom there. But keeping up with all of that is a lot of work. And it can feel like you're being productive in consuming all of this stuff when you're not actually doing anything to move your plan forward. So you can have confidence in your plan, that action part of it. Sort of the knowing versus doing. There's a gap in between there. And honestly, all I care about is you closing that gap. I care about me closing that gap. And I want to help you close that gap to focus on doing things. Otherwise, we just keep talking about it. And that's one reason why we're leaning into structure for how to do things and putting things in their proper place, etc. But just examine yourself a little bit, see if where you're at, if you're more on the knowing side and consuming side or the actual doing side of things. Always good to check yourself there. Today, we're going to answer some of your questions and also have Kevin Lyles, a great doer, our coach in the Rock Retirement Club for Coach's Corner. Why don't we get started? Today's show is sponsored by Cozy Earth. Stay warm and wrap yourself up in Cozy Earth this holiday season. Cozy Earth makes sheets and a whole line of men and women's loungewear made from viscue from bamboo. I always pronounce that wrong. It's something that comes from bamboo. I actually am wearing a Cozy Earth loungewear hoodie. I don't really know if I'm the kind of guy that wears loungewear, but evidently I am because it is soft and it is warm and it feels wonderful. So you should check them out at CozyEarth.com. And if you use the code RAM, which is the code I used when I bought this one, you will get 35% off the entire site. It's a great gift idea, by the way, because these are normally things that people don't think to buy themselves. To get them, whether it's sheets or some loungewear, that really feels good. It's a nice thing to give someone during the holiday season. So check out Cozy Earth at CozyEarth.com. Let's focus on answering some of your questions. If you have a question for the show, you can go to rogerwhitney.com/Ask Roger, and you can type in a question, or you can leave an audio question, which we love, by the way. We're going to continue to answer your questions every single week. Even next month when we do retire, well, I guess it's not next month because in January of 2023, when we do our retirement plan live, and the theme for this year, I'm choosing the subject this week is, hey, I retired in a bear market. And I don't have $2, $3, $4 million or a pension. What do I do? So that's going to be the theme. And we're going to have a listener come on and we're going to share their story and walk through helping them have more confidence in their plan. And hopefully that helps you as well. So that's going to be exciting. So before we get to questions, I do have an alert, an emergency, an ACE emergency warning, Real Robinson. ACE emergency. What is that? I don't know. It's anti-click emergency is what I'm calling it. An ACE emergency. Not sure if I like that acronym. What do I mean by anti-click emergency? Well, I've noticed this, and I'm sure you have, since the holiday season has started and we're through Thanksgiving. I am getting emails. My email box is blowing up with advertisements and offers and everything else, which sometimes is nice when I'm shopping for people I love. But I'm also getting emails that are a little bit more suspect, whether it's from Amazon or other vendors that I can't quite tell whether they're real or not. And unfortunately, as part of this email onslaught, we're getting a lot of nefarious players that are trying to trick us to get us to click on things, pretending like they're Amazon or some other place that we're tracking packages and so forth. And really all they want is our information so they can go sell it on the quote unquote dark web and steal our identity or just get us on their list and annoy us forever. So you got to be careful on clicking on things. One newer development, I noticed it a little bit last year, but I'm really noticing it this year, is text messages. Amazon driver alerts, just text marketing to me. That's like the next wave, I guess. Yeah, I'm just warning you to be careful what you click on. I don't click on much, and I'm very cautious on what I'm clicking on. So if you get an email, I don't know what the quote unquote best practices are. I'll just tell you what I do. One, I don't really click on any of them. What I do is if I'm wondering about an Amazon thing, use that as an example, I go to their website and I log in and I can check my orders. I'll get whatever information I need there. Whatever website you go to, I would be very careful on clicking on things most times, but especially this time of year, because they're upping their game. So we need to up our vigilance. So be careful. So our first question comes from David on whether he should pay off his mortgage. David says, "Hey, Roger, I'm a new listener to your show, really enjoying it. The question is, I'm married. I have 1 and 3-year-old kids. The only debt we have is a house we own of about $120,000. We have saved $120,000 in our emergency fund. I'm torn whether I should pay off the mortgage. That will free some of my income to invest more. We have our mortgage, which is 3.6%. We also thought about it investing in a rental property. My wife isn't supportive of that. She likes being home full time with the kids. Just want to get your thoughts." So essentially, David wants to know, hey, should I pay my mortgage off or should I invest the extra cash or invest it in a rental property? Possibly. So David, this is going to be an optimization question, and it sounds like you're younger if you have a 1 and 3-year-old in the house. So you're in that wealth accumulation phase. Do I like the idea of having a paid off mortgage? Yeah, I do. It feels good. Your mortgage is about $120,000, I think you said, and you're at 3.6%. I'm assuming that's a 30-year fixed, but I don't know, so I'll just make that assumption. Should you pay it off? One wrinkle you put in here is you said that your wife is thinking about being full-time home with the kids. To determine whether you should pay the mortgage off, I would go through a hierarchy. I would go through a short process, and we'll try to map out the numbers here or the steps that I would take. I think you and your wife should talk about where you're going. You got a 1 and 3-year-old in the house. My wife left work right around the same time our kids were your kids' age, and that she was a big earner, and that took a financial hit to the family. But we made that decision outside of the finances per se. So first off, start to have some deeper conversations of what is it you want your life to look like over the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. Knowing that, I'm going to guess you're younger, that you're accumulating for a while here. You're on a long journey with these kiddos. What is it you want your life to look like? How important is it that she stay home or have more flexible time to manage the household as well as possibly bring in income or not? How important is that? This is going to be a judgment that the two of you have to figure out of what you want your life to look like. Much like having children, the idea of staying home, there's always financial reasons not to do it, right? Two incomes are better, and there's always reasons not to do it. So you're going to have to just make that decision for yourself. This is important at the beginning because now you know what you're trying to solve for. I'll use an example of myself when our kids were your kids' age. When my wife decided to leave work, we took a huge financial hit because I was in a transitionary period in my career, my entrepreneurial career. I wasn't making a lot of money because I was working through this transition. We, in tandem with her leaving work, we moved from a relatively expensive house at the time to roughly the same size house that cost about half as much. And we moved within a mile or two of my in-laws, my mother and father-in-law, and my wife's twin. We still live in that little bubble. So in addition to my wife leaving work, we made the decision sort of blow up the life that we had created, much of it out of my ego, by the way, and move to a more family-centric structure and financial structure to make this much more doable and to build that network for our children. You got to decide if that's important to you. Once you've made that decision, now you can go through the cash flow. What makes sense for us in the cash flow? Now you have $120,000 in mortgage. You've saved $120,000 in an emergency fund. If you paid off that mortgage, it sounds like you would eliminate all the liquidity on your balance sheet. And again, I don't have the whole picture here, so I would be very careful about that. Because liquidity is going to give you options. That money in the bank is going to give you options. It could give you options for your wife to leave work and then help fill the gap in order to manage that transition from a cash flow perspective until your income gets to where it needs to be potentially. It could help you with emergencies, because if you don't have an emergency fund and life happens to you, your choices are much more limited. You either have to do without fixing whatever the emergency is. You're going to have to borrow money, debt, credit card, whatever kind of debt it is. You're going to have to go to family. You're going to have to cut your expenses. Having an emergency fund gives you more financial flexibility. And we all know how much I love it, flexibility. Plus, that $120,000, if you do pay off the mortgage, it will lower your annual cost of living, right? Because you're not going to have that principal and interest payment. The answer may be somewhere in between of, do you simply try to pay it off more quickly over 5, 10, 15 years? That way you maintain some of that financial flexibility. I don't think there's a lot of different pathways to get to where you want to get. One of them is just pay it off and deal with it. Another one is something in between. Another one is not pay it off. I'll use myself as an example again. This is going to be my subtle flex now. I think I'm going to make a t-shirt that says 2 5/8, 30-year fixed. I think I pegged like the lower of the market on my mortgage. I'm in a different situation than you, David, but I was facing, do I pay my mortgage off or do I not? And I chose not to, because 2 5/8, if I paid that off, I think my principal and interest payments a little less than $1,000. So it wasn't going to drastically change my cash flow picture in my life if I did pay it off, but it was going to take out, couple $100,000 in cash that I had as a buffer that I could potentially use in different ways. So you be careful if you pay it off initially, because now you're going to be very cash flow restricted right now. I probably would look at somewhere in between where you just start making extra payments if you want, or you figure out better uses for that money, perhaps even investing in your career or finding your wife something where she can have more flexibility. I would pursue some of those before I would just simply write the check. Is it a rental house? I don't know. But I think first start off, what is it you want to accomplish here? Our next question comes from Michael, who is a little bit confused on my answer about Social Security and COLA, or inflation adjustments, prior to taking Social Security. He says, I'm 60 years old and have been retired for 4 years. and I'm thinking about my claiming strategy and how the COLA or inflation adjustment is going to impact that. His central question is, how does Social Security COLA work? Thanks, Michael. I'm sorry that it was confusing. One, it is confusing, and it's easy to get discombobulated in how you approach it. And so let me try again here. So there are 4 time windows of interest for calculating one's Social Security benefit. The first window, there are your earnings before you turn 60. Nothing is happening related to Social Security directly during these years, just indirectly in the amount that you've earned, likely increased over time. So that's window number 1. Window number 2 is the year you turn 60. This is the confusing piece that many people don't understand, and the one that has such an outsized impact for being a single year event that no individual has any control over. So you don't have any control over this. So to keep from undervaluing your earning years, courtesy of inflation, in the year you turn 60, a formula is used to bring forward all of those years of earnings onto a level playing field through the calculation of what the Social Security Administration calls average indexed monthly earnings, AIME. This formula is used to approximate inflation, and it reflects the change in general wage levels that occurred during the working years of employment. To calculate this number, they base it on another component called the average wage index. In most years, this works well because the average wage index is just approximating inflation. But sometimes when you have huge spikes in some ways, there's a big concern that, hey, this formula is going to underreport what actual inflation is. Because a poor average wage index in the year you turn 60 can have a negative impact on your Social Security benefits for the rest of your life. And it's not something that you can manipulate anyway. You really can't do anything about it in terms of mitigating it. But we've had some recovery, and the problems are pretty minimal compared to what people were worried about a little bit earlier this year. So that's the second window. That's age 60. The third window is from the time you turn 62 until the time you start receiving your Social Security benefit. This time window has 3 different components over your future benefits. 1 you can control and 2 that you can't. See, okay, this can get complicated. We need a flow chart here. One of those you have control over, and the 2 that you don't. Okay, the first one, sorry, I'm reading this because it's not like I have all this in my head. The first component is if you continue to earn income, that might contribute to your top 35 years of earnings if your wages have been growing. The second component is the COLA, which is where your future benefit is recalculated to go up based on inflation, based on CPI. And that's CPI-W, which is a different measure of inflation than is used for the majority of your earnings years. Of course it is. It's created by the government. And the third component is your early retirement reduction or delayed retirement credit. Starting at age 62, there's an early reduction of about 5 to 6% per year, depending on when you actually file. This is related to your full retirement age. If you claim prior to your full retirement age, you're going to have a reduction in your earnings. And then the last window, the fourth window, is the rest of your life after you start receiving your Social Security benefit. This is the easy one. This is, again, where every year the Social Security benefit goes up by the cost of living adjustment. This also continues to apply for the spouse's benefit and will go up at their death. To be specific about your question, you do not need to claim early to get a COLA increase on your Social Security benefits. I hope that clarifies things, Michael. Maybe I should have just said that at the beginning. This stuff is complicated. Sometimes it can be material, but I would put all of this discussion on the claiming part of it in the optimization phase of thinking about retirement planning. Because you're going to get the benefit. There's going to be a COLA adjustment. If some wacky thing happens, most of it you can't control. It will adjust the benefit, but generally it's not material enough to worry about outside of the optimization phase, at least in my experience. Our next question comes from Beth, and it's really a comment related to my answering a question on how to navigate long-term care insurance or not. And I think it's a great perspective that we want to make sure we factor into this. Beth says, hello, thanks for the great podcast. I learned much from listening. On a recent show, and I think she was referring to episode 444, you discussed long-term care insurance. One of the variables you mentioned is making a decision about whether or not to purchase insurance was the availability of adult children to assist in care. I helped my dad care for my late mom when she was on her dementia journey. As a result of this, I have reached two conclusions. Number one, I would never ask my daughter, with whom I have an excellent relationship, to care for me if I developed dementia. And my mom would have never wanted her children to care for her. Caring for dementia becomes an all-consuming 24/7 job with little to no breaks or vacation. Unlike little born babies that you see progress, all you see is decline. In reality, the caregiver gives up several years of their life. I salute those out there that are doing the work with family members. From my experience caring for my mom, I have made it a priority to arrange care for myself should it ever be needed that does not rely on hands-on day-to-day care by my child. Well said, Beth. That is pearl of wisdom from somebody that has actually walked this journey. When you're considering long-term care and how you might manage that, having children or a network close can be there for support, literally for helping out. But part of that cost is the journey that that person is going to go on. And every family relationship and structure is different in terms of their attitudes of caring for each other and doing this work. I do think you want to have it as a factor, even if it's for a short period of time, to know whether there's even the option. And caring for an adult is going to be a journey that potentially sounds like a long journey that Beth went through, that is the physical part. It could also be the financial part. It's just one of those things that we want to have to understand the picture. Who is available, whether it's to help out on an as-needed basis or even on the financial basis, so we have the playing field as we're navigating whether to get long-term care insurance or not. In the event that you can't get long-term care insurance, which is becoming more prevalent based on the basic underwriting, you at least have a picture of, okay, how am I going to navigate this? And whether it's a reverse mortgage or setting yourself up into a retirement community that has continuing care options that go outside of traditional long-term care. But Beth, man, your journey is real, and it does cost years of your life. And it's an honor to do, but not fulfilling as a newborn grandchild, as an example. So thank you so much for sharing. Our last question comes from James, related to finding a financial advisor, just to answer some questions. James says, I am a 57-year-old recent widower with $1.2 million in cash, $1.5 million in retirement accounts, a small pension, Social Security available down the road. I sold our primary house last year and now live in what was our modest second home with a $400,000 mortgage. My question is, how do I find a financial advisor who will just have a conversation with me and help answer my questions without trying to sell me products or take over my portfolio? Great question, James. The first step would be, there are advisors out there that will work on an hourly basis or on a retainer basis or a short-term engagement basis. I know we do flat fee plans that are a mini project that take about a month or so that put together an entire framework that you take and go implement. And we don't take anything over other than do that project. But if you just want to get your questions answered, it is a little bit difficult to find someone to just simply get a question answered. That's one reason why we have the Rock Retirement Club. But if you go to the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, NAPFA.org, they are a fee-only organization that have a pretty high bar about that. There are advisors that do manage portfolios within there, but a lot of them work on a flat fee or hourly basis. And so that would be a place to go. I believe the Garrett Planning Network has advisors that will do that as well. Doesn't mean you might not get an upsell, but that is not the main business model. If you're going to work with someone like that, I would suggest that you have, the more organized you are, the better that you're going to be and the more value you'll get out of such interaction. Be very specific about your questions or the things that you're trying to solve for, and be organized in what you want to accomplish, your goals, your resources to accomplish that, and the specific questions. The better organized you are, the more value you're going to get, so they don't have to organize things and they can have as much information in an organized way to help you. But there are definitely a lot of advisors that work on a flat fee as well as an hourly basis. They're going to be the exception, not the rule, but it's a growing industry, and I think those are two good resources to find one. With that, let's move on to Coach's Corner. All right, it's the end of the month, so we're going to bring in Coach from the Rock Retirement Club, Kevin Lyles. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing great, Roger.
Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Absolutely. I ate too much, but other than that, it was really nice.
So I'm tired of being thankful now. Let's move on to another subject. What's on your mind today?
Well, you've been talking about categorizing questions, listener questions, into feasible, resilient, and optimized, and how they fit. And I was talking the other day to one of the members in the Rock Retirement Club about that. He was trying to figure out how to categorize something. And I said, the way I think about these terms, and I thought it might be interesting to your listeners, is it goes back to some of the traditional retirement questions. I think when you're talking about a feasible plan and whether it's feasible, you're getting to, do I have enough money to retire?
Yeah,
which is usually the first question you get, isn't it?
Or can I do this, right? Can I do this? That's exactly what it means, right? It's just, is this possible?
Exactly.
Yeah, which is an important question.
Resilient, and you're using these big advisor words like resilient. People, what are we talking about?
Oh, resilience, not a big advisor word. Resilience a normal word.
Well, to me, what it means to a retiree is it wise to retire, or should I continue, earn some more income? And really what it's getting to, though, is can I sleep well at night? In other words, will my plan survive all the unexpected things that happen in life?
And that's definitely it, right? Because you have to have confidence in the plan. Internally, visually, I have it where if I bought a book on sailing and bought a boat and a GPS and put some food in the boat, it could be feasible that I could get from, I don't know, Miami to London. That's totally feasible.
Right.
Not very, I don't know how much confidence I would have in that plan.
Yeah, a good storm might set you off course, right?
Right. Whereas making it resilient, if I had extra parts, maybe I actually hired a captain to guide the boat and put some redundancies in place. Now I might have more confidence and be able to sleep. So I think you're exactly right. You're just putting it in more, I guess, non-advisor terms. I don't know.
Layman's terms. That's right. Terms, and then optimized. And I would hazard a guess that 80% of the listener questions you get fit into optimized, because that's where we all go. It's sort of the tactics. And to me, optimized means, what can I do to improve my plan?
Which is really important, right? If I'm on this voyage, it might be nice to have, some music, something to entertain me, something to maybe make the boat a little bit faster than it might be otherwise, all sorts of things.
Yeah. And obviously in retirement life, when we talk about the non-financial side, I think optimization is critical. I think it's important on the financial side, but not necessary. And I think that's your point, which is it's great to do Roth conversions and tax planning and do these things, but it's not necessary for your retirement finances to support your desired lifestyle.
I made this comment the other day when we were having the big meetup with the club to release the revised masterclass. I made this comment and I was thinking about it the other day because I said, I don't care if you optimize your money.
Oh, heresy.
I know. And I sat, kept that pause, Because if you do the first two, you should have a great retirement. The truth is, I really do care if people optimize their money. I feel like I have to be the counterbalance to everybody going to optimization first.
Yeah, people get their focus on optimization, and sometimes they forget the first two critical steps.
Right. It's like putting on your fedora and your jewelry, but walking out with no pants.
Exactly.
Right? You can get the basics down right. Let's play with what this would mean in the non-financial realm. Now, you and I haven't talked about this, but let's play with this in terms of what is feasible, resilient, and optimized. So this is just going to be live creation here. My first thought is, and I don't know where this would go, is the foundation is having the energy to be able to live life. If you don't have a good foundation there, and that could be a lot of things, nutrition, sleep, exercise, etc. I don't know where that would go feasible, resilient. Wouldn't be optimized for sure.
Yeah, I think that on the feasible side, a lot of people go into retirement with whatever their lifestyle has been, and they just continue doing what they've always done. And that's sort of the feasible stage. It's fine. It can work. It can get you through retirement. And then, as you know, what we talk about so much in the club is, can you make it better? Can you get to, for me, resiliency is an important concept on the non-financial side, because in the retirement phase, we go through a lot of challenges, aging parents, loss of spouse, hurricanes. We go through a lot of challenges.
Nagging injuries, pull a muscle.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a big one. And as you know, they don't quite heal like they did when you were 25. And so it can throw you off from whatever you're planning on doing. And there's so many of those things, all kinds of caregiving obligations people have in this phase of life. And they need to be resilient. They need to be able to get through these challenges and hopefully thrive during these challenges and improve. So that's what resilient means to me. Optimized is what I try to do as a coach, which I want you to imagine your best life in retirement and be open to new possibilities and trying out new things. And I think it's much more important on the non-financial side than the financial side, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, once you have that base financially, it gives you a foundation to be confident to think about these other things without all the anxiety around money, or a lot less anxiety around money, hopefully. So you and I were talking, and we had a big huddle with the team yesterday. Next year in the podcast, every week we're drawing these sharper lines around resilient, feasible, optimized, but we're also going to have sharper lines around the non-financial realm. And I think the areas that fit, I heard the themes that you were talking about. We're going to alternate each week between some different themes of mindset, which is a big one. You can do more than what you've always done. Maybe you should go try to salsa dance or play pickleball or do a breathing exercise, even though it seems weird. Mindset, energy, to have the engine, passion for life, since you're not working, and then relationships, right? Those are the four that I can think of that a lot of things can fall into. So we're going to try to hit each one of those a week, which I think will be fun.
I think it'll be a great year on the podcast.
All right. Well, I'm passionate about it, and I know you are. So thank you so much. And we'll talk to you here towards the new year.
Great.
On your marks, get set.
In the next 7 days, I want you to start thinking forward about 2023. One of the things we're going to do in my practice, and we're going to do in the Rock Retirement Club through Guided Arm, is set a benchmark for things we want to have accomplished or things that we want to have clarity on in that year. So for 2023. So I want you to start thinking about those things. And essentially what you're going to create is a punch list, something that you're going to have to take action on. So this time next year, you can go through that list and see the things that you actually did, whether it's putting a estate plan in place or having your retirement project set up or doing that Roth conversion, whatever it is, taking that trip with the family. Start to think about, what do you want on your benchmark for next year? Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm energized at the moment. I just started exercising in the morning because normally I'm an afternoon exercise kind of person. I do it around 4:30. Now I'm getting up around 5. I'm stretching and I'm exercising, and then I meditate, and then I do deep work. That's sort of my structure. I'm sure I'm going to be tired in about an hour or two. I'll have to get used to that. But thanks for hanging out with me. Hope you're having a great morning or a great day, and we'll talk next week. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical and does not guarantee future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. Make sure you consult your legal, tax, or financial advisor before making any decisions.